Cool. Hey guys, it's Jeremy, and I'm here with Matt. He's been raw for about almost 20 years now, so I'll let him introduce himself.
All right. Yes. I was introduced to raw foods by a guy by the name of Jacob Hopkins. And it was interesting because I had never even heard of vegetarian or veganism really until I was presented with it. And he kind of came at me aggressive because I guess that's what vegans kind of do. They get offended by what you're eating. And I was just eating a roast beef sandwich, and he was really offended by that. And he said, "What are you eating that?" I said, "I don't know. What am I supposed to be eating?" He just said, "Only fruit." I thought it was absurd. But at the same time, it made me question, like, wait a minute. What does that even mean? Like, for every meal? Like, I can just eat fruit and live? So I was skeptic, but at the same time, I thought, let's give this a try. Why not? I'm perfectly healthy and I'm a professional athlete. So if it's going to improve my performance, I want to know that. So I started it immediately that day, 100%, and
Awesome.
completely addicted.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So like, wait, so his name, wait, something Hopkins? It was what was his name?
Jacob Hopkins.
Jacob
Yeah,
Hopkins. Cool. I've never heard of
yeah.
him. Oh yeah, you told me. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny because you told me he doesn't do raw foods anymore. But
Yeah.
yeah, cool.
He,
So like as an athlete, like how did it affect your performance when you first started like getting into fruit or just like in general like living foods?
it completely affected it. It affected me first off in cardiovascular. I noticed my endurance shot up extremely high. Matter of fact, almost too high. And I'll tell you the problem that I had is I I would be set back normally from my athletic performance based on the fact that I needed to recover. But because my recovery time was so much better, I didn't know what to do with my extra energy. So I started doing more cardio, like I even needed to, right? But I couldn't sit still. So I actually started competing in triathlons, which made me lean down a little bit. So it was harder because I was always trying to go up in weight, eating, waking up, having like, 10 eggs and then eating pasta right before bed and bread as much as I can with olive oil all over it. Anything I could do to pack on the weight. And now I'm eating just grapes and I'm running everywhere. So that was a problem, but I eventually figured it out.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, like you do really high carb, and I know like there's a lot of actually other people who like on the raw foods they do like higher fat. I don't know what your opinion on that is, just like more fat or more carbs or
I usually tell people don't go over 35% of your daily caloric value in fat, especially if you're a woman. If you're a man, you can go up to 35%. Females
35%.
do not.
Wow.
On a raw food diet. Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't do good with the nuts and seeds. Men tend to do better, which is why when we do like the gourmet version of the raw food,
Yeah.
we can handle like the nut pates and the fake breads, and the women gain lots of weight from it, mostly from the lignans and the high omega fatty acids that are phytoestrogenic, things like that. They affect women, have a tendency to hold weight more, but it
Why
doesn't really do that.
like why is that though? Do you know? Or it's just because it has to do with their hormones or like different just the way they process something?
Well, yeah, women is their dominant hormone is estrogen, and for
Yeah.
men it's testosterone. So when
Okay.
they start eating extra phytoestrogenic foods, those receptors really help them store the fat. They bring it on and they store it better because that's kind of what their body's designed to do. It's like always trying to keep a higher percentage of body fat, usually about 20%, and then you'll notice that when it drops below that, their periods stop and their hormones get messed up. Men aren't affected by that, so we tend to do better with lower fat and higher fat. As where women they get too high fat, boom, it'll make them get huge, or they'll drop too low in fat, and boom, their period's gone. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They're really hormonally affected. Men not so much.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because like I there's a different opinions out there on how much fat to eat for. It's kind of interesting. I guess you kind of just try to find your own thing like how you feel best, right? Or
Yeah, it depends on where you live.
Yeah.
I always tell people we're kind of like a fish in the ocean. And then when we get taken out and we get put in an aquarium, you don't change the fish's diet. But here's the thing, fish live in the same temperature and the same, salinization of the water as where humans, we can be in the tropics and get moved to the north where you're now living in snow. So that same diet won't work. It won't be efficient. It won't keep you warm. It'll change your entire system. So it is kind of dependent, not just genetics, but mostly on where you live, and that's going to affect what you require in the season. Like if you live in Hawaii, there's only two seasons: wet and dry. The
Yeah.
temperature never changes. But
Right.
if you live in Canada, it's going to be really cold, man. You better be living on something more than mango. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, more than mango. Yeah, it makes sense. Like in the winter time, just eat more fats if if that's what you feel like doing naturally, right? I mean, and then again, I mean, I've noticed for me, I like when I work out and when I'm more active, I feel like fats help me out with the calories, of course, but I feel like I just I'm getting more lean and like I try to find that balance between lean and just like kind of you know you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, but huh? What was that?
I said you kind of split it out.
Oh, darn it. Okay, whatever. Cutting out's fine. It's not perfect. I got my hotspot, but um, so yeah, you were saying. I guess I'm gonna go kind of off topic now, but uh, you're really into like the genetics and like the longevity. So where does that come into play with raw foods, do you think?
Good question. Most people don't really consider genetics as part of too much of diet, but it's directly correlated because of something called epigenetics. Everything that we do affects us through our genetics because of epigenetic switches. So, what I mean by that is if you were going to be moving to a higher altitude, certain genes are going to switch on so you adapt and your blood will get better and you can hold more oxygen and things like that will happen, change you. The same thing will happen with diet. When you acclimate and you convert your diet to what's naturally going on, it's not just about the enzymes that are in foods, it's about how they affect your genes. And they directly affect your genes. Think about how many foods are negated from B vitamins when you're on a cooked food diet, right? That's why they fortify your foods. That's why when you buy bread or cereal, it says they're enriched and fortified. So
Mhm.
they have to add synthetic vitamins to those foods.
Yeah.
As where in raw foods, they're naturally built in. You get copper and vitamin P and vitamin K, and it's wrapped in a thin ring of ascorbic acid, which is natural vitamin C and how you find it in nature. But when you go and you buy ascorbic acid, it's just that. It's just that
Yeah.
thin ring. So there's no bioflavonoids, there's no mineral composition, there's no way for your body to truly assimilate it, and you're urinated out. Well, that's the same thing with these vitamins. We don't get any natural vitamin B3 besides this fortified synthetic version.
Yeah.
And the compounds that we do get, they don't activate any of these longevity genes. The only time that it actually gets done is really from our windows of eating. So we get it from diet, we get it from polyphasic eating, we get it from juicing, we get all these different compounds and elements that are found in nature that the average person doesn't get anymore because they process their foods to the 1000th degree, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense
That
because it's
makes sense.
way more like compact with the nutrients and the B vitamins, things like that. Um, what is because like I've noticed a lot of some long term like raw foodies that I've watched online, they talk about the importance of like cleaning out and like cleansing out. So like bowel cleansing and just in general like intermittent fasting, things like that. So it helps us release more toxins on the way because if you're just eating a raw food diet, some may say like it's kind of just you won't necessarily be like you'll kind of just be like the average person is what they're saying, but I don't know. I don't know what your opinion is on that.
That is not true
Yeah,
whatsoever. The raw foods are very different than other foods because of the fact
yeah,
that they're very clatherative. They have a very cleansing effect in their own. I
right,
do very little cleanses anymore nowadays. My diet is what cleanses me. I can eat all the time and be healthier than a person that's on a fast because of that. The only elements that I put into my body would come in the form of their ability to cleanse me. There's a lot of people that knock and make fun of activated charcoal, for example. That's one of the best supplements that you can take constantly. That's really good. Every scientific study that's ever been done on it shows that it extends the life of the animal or creature that consumes it. And the same thing happens with our natural diet. Foods are supposed to be not just calories and not just, fat or carbs or protein. There's supposed to be elements inside that feed us. And
right.
that's why you can eat a handful of foods and get full, as opposed to eating tons and tons of cereal or pasta and still be hungry after and still look for dessert. The reason why is because they're missing those elements that your body really requires. So I see a lot of people cleansing all the time, but always blaming their health problems on either cleansing or having a health problem that they're cleansing from. See what I mean? There's always something going on. I've never been I've never been unhealthy. So I don't even know what that means. Like, what do you mean you're detoxing? I feel great when I detox. What are you talking about? Like, it's
Yeah,
not supposed to be bad. The only reason you would be unhealthy is because you have toxins that are stored in the fat. And when you're losing the fat, those toxins get pushed into your bloodstream. So unless you're unhealthy, you should not feel detox reactions.
yeah. So yeah, exactly. That makes sense. I never did. I never really did that much. I mean, in my opinion, I was kind of unhealthy, but still, I didn't really. I don't know. I don't know. I guess because I was young. I'm still young, so it didn't catch up to me. Like I got on this lifestyle pretty early, so it didn't really matter. But
Nice.
yeah.
Good.
But but yeah. I guess I don't know what to ask. I'm just like I don't know what to ask. But yeah.
Well, here's one. What I think that most raw foodists do a couple things that I don't recommend. Matter of fact, they eat lots of unsprouted and unsoaked, unwashed nuts and seeds. They
Mhm.
really forget that it's not just about enzyme inhibitors. You really got to be careful of these tannins and tannic acids and phytic acids and gliadins that are in these things. And here's a good test. If you were to put a bunch of nuts and seeds in a jar and soak the water, would you drink that water? Of course you wouldn't. You would get very sick. You'd be
Yeah.
very unhealthy from it. So the same principle applies. You wouldn't want to eat those very same substances that are now going to be a lot of work on your spleen. And when they feed mammals like mice, lots of nuts and seeds that have been unsoaked and unsprouted, their pancreas doubles in size. It's very hard for them to manage all those acids.
Yeah.
So it's not just about enzyme inhibitors. You have to worry about other compounds as well. And because a lot of raw foodists do what the average person does when they go vegan or when they go vegetarian, they do the gourmet version. They go from like normal gourmet foods to gourmet vegetarianism and then gourmet veganism and then gourmet raw foods. Well, you're still eating lots of processed food. It doesn't matter if it's still healthy. You're still processing lots of oils, lots of salts, lots of all kinds of flavors, and you're kind of messing with your food a lot, and you're forgetting to do the processing method that makes them healthy in the first
Right.
place.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's the point.
It's kind of like just the idea that oh, it's still raw, so it's healthy, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's
Right.
really popular.
Cool. For working out, I know I was messaging you about like working out and like building muscle on raw. Do you think it's like more of like a long term, like you have to wait longer to build rather than like if you would eat like animal products, do you think it just naturally takes longer?
Yes, it just depends. If you want to go vegan, it'll be just as fast as if you're a vegetarian. It really comes down to how many calories can you consume and how anabolic are they. It really doesn't matter about anything else. It's kind of like calories in, or are you in a caloric deficit? If you're in a caloric deficit and you're a raw foodist, or you're on a caloric deficit and you're a carnivore, you're gonna get the same results. The thing is meats contain natural compounds that are already formed, as where plants have things that your body likes to convert to those compounds, like vitamin A, converting to retinol. You know what I mean, or the carotenoids. and then or you get the iron that your body naturally converts in the body, or you get heme iron straight from meat, right? Well, meat is like taking a free hormonal shot. It's like free steroids. You're getting creatine. Well, guess what? They sell creatine to make you bigger. You get carnosine. Carnosine makes you bigger. You get higher amounts of blood. Well, blood has what? Hormones in it. You get all kinds of things that are not natural to the body. So it's going to do unnatural things to you. And one of those things is make you heal quicker and get bigger because they're not natural compounds. You know what I mean? You get same thing kind of with milk. Milk can do the same thing. That's why you go up to Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, where most of their calories don't come from meat. It comes from dairy, and they're huge people there. So you get lots of compounds really quickly in from those, but they're not good for longevity because they speed up everything. We want to slow down everything. Why would we want to speed up everything that's going on inside the body? It doesn't make any sense. It's like, well, oh yeah, you feel better from it. Yeah, I would feel better if I was doing steroids too. Comparison, you know, you don't. That's like comparing apples and oranges.
Yeah.
You just don't do that. We're trying to say like, how can I accomplish my goal while doing it the cleanest, healthiest way possible? And oftentimes, professional sports and health and longevity are not correlated. They're not. Like if you want to be a professional athlete and running around and stressing your body out and being hurt every single day, and then expect you're going to live 200 years, you're not thinking right. They're
Right.
very contradictory. So being healthy is the true key. See, bodybuilding is about being as big as you possibly can, even if it's unfunctional.
Yeah.
It's how good you can look on stage. So they don't care about the health implications of what they're doing. That's why their longevity is very short. You know, their professional window is very small. And we want to have health and longevity for a long duration of time. So what can you maintain? What can you do every single day? Do you look good all year round, or you just look good on stage for a few minutes of one day a week every year? No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's
Yeah,
like
that
a
makes sense. It's like a
you got to find that meeting point where it's going like too extreme to to actually sustaining that exercise or whatever you're doing.
yes,
But
exactly.
yeah, cool. Yeah, and it makes sense though. You're talking about how the like a lot of animal products they'll grow and they speed up things in everything, like everything in the body. But it makes sense because like you would think that it would speed up also as well, like cancer cell growth maybe.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're absolutely correct.
yeah,
Matter of fact, dairy is one of the few substances that one can consume that actually causes cancer cells to grow once you have it. So,
yeah.
I mean, but meat is a class one carcinogen worldwide. Everybody knows it causes cancer. I don't think anybody on earth can logically say and or honestly say that bacon is good for you, but an apple isn't.
Yeah.
Nobody. Everybody knows that that's not true. Everybody knows the exact opposite is true, but they don't want to do it because it's hard. Everybody has to have better willpower when they're shopping to say, I'm going to spend my money on an apple rather than a juicy steak. So, you know, it's like the same thing that you can buy, like a couple organic apples, will get you a Big Mac and French fries at McDonald's. So the incentive for people to want to do it isn't very high. They have to want to do it themselves. And most people only care about health when they want to lose weight or when they're sick and unhealthy.
Right.
So our movement will never be really popular and really big because of the fact that taste buds rule everybody. If I were to walk around and rip off everybody's taste buds, they would quickly eat everything that was good for them because they wouldn't care anymore. But because taste buds rule everybody's decision making skills, they rationalize and justify every reason they possibly can to eat the way that they want to. Why do you think the paleo diet is so popular when you can eat butter and bacon for every single meal and tell yourself that you're healthy? That's just insane. They know that's not.
Yeah, yeah. It's all about the taste buds. Yep. That's the problem. No, no. Yeah, I guess it's just yeah. Everybody, you could say like everybody starts at where they are, but at the same time, it's whatever is going to be around them. You know, they're going to be tempted to dive into. But uh, yeah,
Yeah.
tell us a time about when you were in where Costa Rica or Hawaii, and you were picking fruit for like a long time and just living out there.
Yeah. I was living in Las Vegas at the time in about 2008, and I was living with my friend Andrew. and we had lived there for a couple years, and he was running out of money, and I was just bored. I was a raw food chef at a place called Go Raw Cafe, and Vegas was kind of boring. And I know that sounds crazy, but when you don't drink and party and go out, Vegas isn't the town. That's because that's what you do when you live in Vegas. So I got really bored and I wanted to go somewhere. And eventually it was concluded that Hawaii was where I was going to go, but I wasn't just going to go into like a city. I wanted to go to the tropics. So I found that the northern island is the best one. It's the Kauai, the Green Island.
Oh, nice.
So I had never been. So I just got off the plane with a backpack and I walked as north as I could because I had seen on the computer that that's where the entire, massive acres of just green is. And they can never, put homes there because it's national forest. So I walked in on the Kalalau Trail that goes in about 11 miles.
Yeah.
And I ended up living there.
That's amazing.
It was pretty cool. Here's how that went. Basically, when I originally got there, on the right-hand side, there was a guy that had been living there since the 70s. I call him Mayor Ron. And he was a lawyer when he was on mainland. And that's what he did for his career. And he wanted to retire, but rather than just like buy a home in the middle of the city, he actually just moved out and lives in the jungle. And he's lived there ever since. But he doesn't live off the land. He's actually really overweight. And they barbecue up a pizza kind of thing every night. They make a stew and a pizza. He has a library, and he basically walks around and picks up the debris that all the tourists leave behind because he's right off of the trail. Like literally, you can see his camp. And at the time, there were about 11 other people that lived back there. One girl that had a butterfly tattoo on her chest, dreadlocks. Another guy that wore just pants like every day. He cut his hair by burning it off. I really didn't talk to people. I really wasn't interested in like just socializing. I could have cared less. And what happened is, I guess there was a guy that moved in a couple months later, and he was from Oregon, and he was an electrician or something, and he was there on vacation, and he was staying at the Mayor Rod's camp. And there were a couple girls from Japan that were at the time, and they were living at the camp, and he was living with them, and I guess he got a crush on one of them. So when they were on a hike, he found out that she was married, so he pushed her off a cliff, and she survived. So she identified him. And what happened is the police came back there and rounded up everybody, all of us that were living back there, and pushed us out. And especially since we didn't have cards, you're supposed to renew a hiking card to even use the trail every month. I never even got one in the first place. So they rounded us up and they just threw us out. So I walked around the entire island. I actually walked all the way around it and learned every city and learned what was in Honolulu and where to stand. What stores were open. I would bring people avocados and trade for other things when I was in the store. But you can literally walk around and pick papayas, avocados, and mangoes, guava, anywhere that you want in any city, as long as you know where it's at. And that was the hardest part. I had to find it. Like when you're in downtown, they're not having fruit trees everywhere, but you can find guava and you can find a sugar cane, and you can just rip them right out of the ground and just eat it right there and just walk to the next town. It was really cool. Awesome. You don't really need anything.
That's so cool. That's really awesome. Yeah, so you just walk out there and just pick whatever fruit you wanted. That's so awesome, dude. Yes. That's the dream. That's like, that's freedom.
It is. It's ultimate freedom. The worst part about it was that the government doesn't like people doing that. Mm-hmm. So first of all, they don't know that people can just live off fruits, but they know that the more fruits there are, the more people will want to stay. So they cut down most of the mango trees. And the mango trees were bigger than most people's homes. I mean, they were huge, so wide that if you went to hug it, you wouldn't even be able to get down. You wouldn't even be able to surround 5% of the tree. They were massive. Like, I would say 20 stories high. Wow. And they produced thousands of mangoes, right? So they went through and they cut most of them down, and then they released a bunch of goats because goats will eat the trees before they get big.
Wow. That's crazy.
And Hawaii used to be mosquito free. That would have been really cool because the mosquitoes were the only uncomfortable part, really. Well, that and you have to be careful drinking the water because of the damn goats. They would die upstream and the parasites would be downstream. So you got to be careful drinking the spring water as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. You don't want to risk that. But Yeah, another thing I like to focus on is kind of, and like I share with my audience, is just connecting with nature and just trying to, live in the moment. And I know that I bet like you felt pretty relaxed out there and just more connected and in tune with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that anybody listening right now that has like a disease that they think is fatal, they should probably stop everything that they're doing, move out to Hawaii, and just live on the beach. And if you like to surf, go to Honolulu and grab a surfboard and surf every single day and live right there on the beach. Your life will be 1,000 times better than sitting in the city wondering how you're going to pay for all these things that aren't even probably going to make you better for the most part. Most disease is curable, and most is curable up until a fatal stage. If we're talking stage 4, yeah, you might have to do something unnatural because it's reached an unnatural stage if we're talking about cancer. But when you're talking about diabetes and you're talking about heart disease, we're talking about things that are regulated by what you do. Everything that you do has a consequence, even if you do nothing at all. So you have to realize that most people are digging their own grave with their spoons and they don't realize it because we aren't told when we're in school how important everything is when it comes to food. Matter of fact, we weren't taught anything when I was in school about food. So what happens when those kids have more kids? They're teaching those kids that food doesn't matter either. And that's where we're at today in society. We're at to the point where people are being born now that are going to die before their parents because of health problems. So now all of a sudden we care about health. It's gotten to the point where it had to get so bad
Yeah.
before it gets fixed. You know what I mean? We shouldn't wait that long. That's crazy.
Yeah. We like to see what we can get away with. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
crazy. What we can get
Yeah.
away with until we're almost like so messed up that we have to make a change. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things is that people equate like health to like weight loss. You know what I mean? They'll be like, oh, well, I did the paleo diet and I got healthier.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was what you stopped doing. It wasn't what you started doing. It was you stopped eating all the bread and pastries and going to Starbucks 6 times a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need to be a realist and look at what you stopped doing and not like, oh well, kombucha healed every ailment I had and or alkaline water made me cure every disease I had. No, what did you stop doing? That's what people really need to realize. We're surrounded by food, but people can't identify it as food, which is great for me because I can walk into any canyon and eat all the trees and nobody else is doing it because they think that only food is found in a grocery store. And most of the food that's even in your grocery store for a fruitarian is a hybridized food that didn't even exist 100 years ago. So fruitarians try to do it and they completely fail. They rot their teeth out. You know, all their teeth are gone, and then their vision starts to go, and then they're just look at Durian Rider. You know what I mean? He lost his teeth. He has to inject B12. He has to inject testosterone. His body doesn't make anything that it's supposed to. He was a horrible representation of the diet. He failed on every program he tried, and then everyone goes, "Oh, they see how bad the diet is. It's obviously horrible." And then you have Matt Monarch who grinds up raw almonds in on a stone grounder, which is notorious for building mold, and then he doesn't even soak the almonds. He actually believed that you can grind the tannic acids out of almonds. What is he thinking about? Like none of it makes any sense. He doesn't have any science background. You know what I mean? He just assumes that that's true, and then he fails, and then everyone goes, "Oh, see, the raw diet isn't good anymore. Look, all the guys fail on it." It's just no, they just don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. That's why yeah, that's why I try to like surround myself with information from specific people. I mean, it's kind of hard to find, the real science behind the lifestyle just because like it's kind of new. I mean, yeah, we're supposed to eat raw foods. I mean, like you look in like the Bible, you look in, just way back, naturally you were supposed to just be eating like raw food, but at the same time the science is just not there. But I you know what? Just look at most of the long term raw foodies,
Yeah,
yeah, like
I agree.
you're long term.
The thing that I always tell people, if you believe in creation,
Yeah,
you believe that God created man to live off the fruits of the trees.
yeah,
And if you believe in evolution, what did man do before they cooked food? Well, guess what? They were raw foodists as well. So no matter what paradigm you come from. You have to believe that man's original diet was raw foods. We
Right.
got away from that. And the only reason we got away from it is because we became nomadic and we started traveling around the world and we moved to regions of the world that don't grow food. Like you could be up in the northern tundra and there's nothing there except for some pine trees, and you're like, well, I guess I'm going to kill an animal to eat it, and I can't eat it raw. So they started cooking foods to eat foods that they normally couldn't eat. And then all of a sudden it took over because they're like, wow, when you cook it, it tastes better. They didn't care about the nutrients, they cared about the taste.
Right.
And so that's
Right.
exactly what we do today. Matter of fact, if you go to any Starbucks, you'll see a warning sign right next to their pastries. It says Prop 65. That's in California, by the way. And it says these foods contain a carcinogistic substances and acrylamides that will cause cancer. So they tell you right there that the foods they're selling you will cause you to get cancer and die. They tell you. And the reason that those foods do that is because they are cooked. So you can take a potato and you can eat that potato raw right there, and nothing will happen to your cells. Now, what will happen when you take that potato and you put it over fire and you glycate it and that fire browns it? Now that's become glycated and it forms advanced glycolytic end products. And those carbohydrates bind with the proteins, and now it's a carcinogen. French fries are a class 1 carcinogen. They cause cancer. Why is that? It's the same food. The processing method is what did it. So we have to be careful. So if you do want to eat those foods, you have to realize, okay, I can cook them, but they have to be cooked in a particular way, or else I'm going to get more disease. So by the more you process something, the worse it gets for you. So why not just leave it in its natural state? Because you can, but we know people like the flavor. So
Right.
that's why they go back to cooking it. They don't care if it causes cancer. If they did, they wouldn't be going to Starbucks for their pastries.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's about the taste again, Yeah, we're creatures, we're sensory creatures, we like feeling, we like tasting, it's the culture too, it just goes back to the whatever is going on around us and whatever is available, like instant gratification, just now. But even now, like I'm sure like when I first started raw, it wasn't like hard for me because I guess I'm just rare, I guess. But um, most people it's the taste, it's the taste, and it takes a while to transition. But once they do actually transition into more raw foods, they feel they feel like it's fine and like their body's used to it because then of course like it changes their microbiome and stuff, right? So
Yeah, well, here's the thing with that. The mouth is the first ecology of the body to actually change when we change our diet,
yeah,
meaning our salivary glands actually change the pH. So our salivary amylase, which is always very alkaline and wants to be very alkaline, it changes. So foods that normally don't taste good to you right now actually will taste good. And the perfect example of that is wheatgrass. Wheatgrass, I don't really recommend people to do it, but if you do, um, when you start, the first sip that you ever have, you can't even get the flavor out of your mouth. You hate it so much. You can even drink the smoothie. And, just I dare anybody that's new to this, go to Jamba Juice and get a wheatgrass shot and take it. Watch how bad it is. It is the most putrefied thing you've ever actually had. Now, what happens is go later, and about a year later, you'll have forgotten about wheatgrass juice because it's not convenient. Nobody just goes and finds wheatgrass juice at a store. So sometime when you're out again and you're passing by Whole Foods or something, ask for a wheatgrass shot and take it and watch how sweet and good it tastes. That's a perfect example how your mouth will change the flavor of what is enjoyable to natural foods again.
yeah, that's really cool. I'm glad you shared that. Oh, so wait,
It's a
what is it?
little fun experiment for people.
Why does it do that again? It's like you said, is a glycation, like
No, that's because of the
it's like
pH of the mouth. The salivary
oh,
amylase, the
okay,
saliva, changes the pH, so
okay,
our flavor and tastes of those foods become better. We
yeah.
actually
That's something I've heard though. Like when you also like that's why you look at a food. You'll see a food and you'll start feeling those tingling sensations in your mouth because like it's like getting all like getting all the pH in there, right? ready to ready
yeah.
to eat. Yeah, that's really cool. And I thought like what your pH it changes like based off of the types of food, like kind of what you were saying basically. But like for like the like if you're eating like an onion, it'd be like the right pH for an onion, or if like you're eating a tomato, it'd be the right pH for the tomato.
Yeah. that's why I don't really like mixing lots of foods.
Yeah.
And that's why I like carbohydrate bases because our mouth and saliva, our digestion, it's carbohydrate based, meaning saliva is only used as amylase to break down carbohydrates. So the first part of digestion begins with carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are a natural part of the diet. They're not something to be afraid of. So we need those. And if you start combining lots of protein with carbs like most Americans do, well, guess what? Carbohydrates require alkaline. Protein requires hydrochloric acid of the stomach. So you have two competing elements requiring two different digestion properties. So they aren't very good in conjunction with one another. So if you want to eat those foods, you have to separate your proteins from your carbs if they're animal sourced. If they're plant sourced, like beans and legumes, usually that doesn't really matter because they're not an acidic form that requires tons of hydrochloric acid. They're a weaker form that, like legumes all require bacteria for digestion, not hydrochloric acid. So they're a different type of processing altogether by the body. So I like to tell people just separate out your carbs from protein. That way you don't have to think about much. You don't have to go and be like, oh, I gotta have my salad, then I gotta have my pasta, and then I gotta have my steak, and then my dessert. Well, what you did was you just mixed every food group you're not supposed to for digestion purposes, and you ate them in the wrong order. If you were going to eat them, you ate them in the wrong order. Hydrochloric acid is weaker at the end of the meal, and sugar should be eaten first, and plants should be eaten last because they're alkaline anyway. It's people don't do anything right.
You sound like Marcus now. I mean, Marcus Rothkind's always ranting about things. He's like,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
probably, we're a lot alike, me and Marcus.
yeah,
A lot alike. Probably
yeah,
why we get along so good.
yeah. I see his book behind you too. Or yeah, him and Kara's book, the cookbook. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
Love on a plate. Yeah,
I was making some things from it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Love on a plate.
that's a good book. It's a good book. It's fun.
Yeah. What do you usually eat on a daily basis? It's probably different. It's probably not the same all the time, of course, but like what would you eat?
It was similar for a while. What I liked doing when I was gaining weight was I would wake up and I would have a smoothie and I would take plantains and I would freeze them. I would cut them up and then I'd freeze them, and it would be a base of plantains with some nut milk, and then I would add my favorite sweetener. It doesn't really matter. I have Yukon root syrup. I have raw honey. There's all kinds that you can use. Just use your favorite. And then if I want, I was for a while, and it actually worked. Was the Axiom Foods? They're the ones who sell Sun Warrior protein and all them, and they make a raw rice protein that's really good.
Oh,
And I
nice.
like it, but it's chalky. So if you like chalky taste, that's the way to go.
Cool. It's a raw rice protein. That's interesting. So I think I've heard of that, something like that. So it's probably just like a raw something like it's like brown rice or something or like
Back then it was white rice.
it's
Now
white
it's
rice.
brown rice.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they converted. They changed it up. Well, I don't know why they would do that, but it's all right. Brand safety.
Cool. Awesome.
But
Well,
that was like a breakfast, and then for lunch or right after, a couple hours later, I would eat as much coconut as I could. Mature coconut, not Tai Young. That doesn't work at all. Matter of fact, that makes you lose weight. But what
really?
happens with
Oh.
mature coconut is it stimulates your appetite. It has tons of calories. Like one coconut this big has 1,400 calories. So you can eat a whole coconut, get almost more than half your daily caloric needs, and then literally in 1 hour you're starving. So I really like that. I use that to stimulate my appetite so I can eat more food. And then I eat a lot of dried fruit. Dried fruit and powders are really good. People underestimate them because what happens is, like, let's say that you go pick a bunch of fresh fruit. Well, the Max Planck Institute in Germany did studies on raw foods, and most people don't know this. They actually wanted to figure out how much enzymatic loss happened and occurred with food through time, and what would happen if you froze them, and what happened when you dried them. And if you were to take raw foods and put them directly in the freezer, they'll maximum lose only 35%, or 30%, I mean, of their enzymes.
Wow.
Maximum. If you leave them on the table, they dramatically drop. They can go down to an 80% loss. Matter of fact, Marcus actually found studying oranges that they lose 100% of their vitamin C after a week.
Yeah.
So what happened is if you dried them, you dehydrated them, or you took them and you ground them up and made a powder, they lock those nutrients in, and you're able to consume even more of them when they're dehydrated. because there's no water filling you up. You know, if you eat a papaya, I mean, one papaya, you're so full and bloated. You're like, oh my gosh, even though you only consumed about 300 calories. So the trick, if you dehydrated that same papaya, you have these little tiny sticks. You only have like 5 sticks of papaya, and it's all the same calories, but no water. You eat them, and you just want more. You can eat a lot more. So then you can dip them in like raw cashew butter, and now you got tons of calories. So
Awesome.
just get inventive.
That sounds good. That sounds really delicious. That's
Yeah,
funny.
it's good.
No, yeah, right. Like I know, like Marcus talks about powdering and how like you go outside and there's the wild herbs and you powder those and dude like that's like tons of nutrients. But of course, like, it takes a lot. Like one branch. If you have like one branch, it'd probably be like super small amount of powder. So like imagine just that small amount of powder would be like that much nutrients.
Right. So super dense,
Right.
super dense.
Yeah, I love his powders. You helped him with
Oh
the
yeah,
powders,
yeah,
huh?
they're good.
Yeah,
Yeah. I harvested all of his pine needles for the vitamin C supplement. You talk about aggravating. Oh my gosh, that's so much work.
cool.
Can't
That's
even imagine.
that's crazy. Yeah, yeah, his powder's really good. Well, it was about like 42 minutes by now, so I mean, we can probably keep going, but it's gonna get really, really long.
Okay, good. We can stop and do another one later.
Yeah, cool. Sounds great. Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you for joining this video with me. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks for having
Yeah,
me on, man. Till
for
next time.
sure. For sure.